This is a continuation of Chapter 7, the Taliban and SWAT, because I guess I only have 15 minutes because I'm not paying for this program. Every day, I noticed that a few more of our classmates were missing. And every night on his radio show, Fazlullah kept up his attacks, saying that girls who went to school were not good Muslims and that they would go to hell. One day, one of our teachers went to my father and said that he would no longer teach girls. Another said that he was leaving to help Fazlullah build a religious center. It was a dark day. The Kushal school, which had always been our refuge, had fallen under the shadow of the radio mullah. Fazlullah had set up a public court to enforce his edicts, and his men were now flogging or killing policemen, government officials, and other men and women who disobeyed him. Hundreds gathered to watch the floggings, shouting Allah Akbar, God is great, with each lash. Sometimes, people said, Fazlullah's arrived at the proceedings, galloping in on a black horse. Much of Fazlullah's justice was exacted in the dead of night. Later, in his reign of terror, violators were dragged from their homes and killed. Their bodies would be displayed in the green square the next morning. Often a note was pinned to the body. This is what happens to spies and infidels. Or, do not touch this body until 11 a.m. or you will be next. Before long, people had a new name for the green square. They started calling it Bloody Square. I shuddered to hear these stories. What was becoming of my city? What would become of us? God, I said when I went to bed, I know that you are busy with many, many things around the world, but do you see what is happening here in Swat? One night I overheard my parents talking in hushed voices. You must do it, my mother said. To be afraid is no solution. I will not go without your blessing, my father said. God will protect you because you are speaking the truth. I stepped out of my hiding place and asked what was going on. My father said that he was going to a meeting that night to speak out against the Taliban. And after that, he said he would travel to Islamabad to take the government to task for not protecting its citizens. My father, a simple principal, was taking on the two most powerful and dangerous forces in the country, and my mother was standing by him. Most Pashtun women would cry and beg and cling to their husbands' sleeves, but most Pashtun men would ignore their wives. Few would have even consulted with them in the first place. But my parents were not like other parents. My father is like a falcon, the one who dared to fly where others would not go. And my mother is the one with her feet firmly planted on the ground. For my part, I took on the job of locking the house each night when my father was away. I went around the house once, twice, often 3 times, making sure all the doors and windows were locked. Sometimes my father came home quite late, sometimes not at all. He took to sleeping at friends' houses occasionally just in case he was being followed. He was protecting us by staying away, but he could not protect us from worrying. Those nights, I heard my mother praying until all hours. One day, I was traveling to Shangla with my mother and brothers. We didn't own a car, and one of our cousins was giving us a ride. As the traffic slowed to a crawl, he put in a cassette to pass the time. Suddenly, he ejected the tape. He scrambled to gather up the other cassettes he kept in the glove box. Quick, he said to my mother, hide these in your handbag. 2 men drew near to our car. They were wearing black turbans and camouflage vests over their shalwar kameez. They had long hair and beards, and they were carrying Kalashnikov automatic weapons. I was face to face with the Taliban, but they were searching cars for anything they claimed was forbidden by Islam. None of us had said a word, but I saw my mother's hands shake as she gripped her purse, where the haram items were hidden. She pulled her veil more securely across her face and lowered her gaze to her lap. The Taliban leaned in the back window. His eyes bored into mine. Sisters, he said to both of us, you must wear a burqa. You are bringing shame. He was a talib with a machine gun just inches from my face. How was I bringing shame? I wanted to ask him. I was a child, a 10-year-old girl, a little girl who liked playing hide and seek and studying science. I was angry, but I knew that it would do no good to try to reason with him. I knew I should have been afraid, but I only felt frustration. When we returned home from the visit to Shangla, we found a letter from my father taped to the school gate. Sir, the school you are running is Western and infidel, it said. You teach girls, and you have a uniform that is un-Islamic. Stop this or you will be in trouble and your children will weep and cry for you. It was signed, Fidayin of Islam, devotees of Islam. The Taliban had threatened my father, and now I was afraid.